but like there was headlines that said like Dharmesh Shah, CTO, co-founder of HubSpot, buys HubSpot shares. And I think it was like, was it $10 million? It was a pretty substantial amount.
It was over three. Forgot the exact amount is, but
it was millions of dollars. And then suddenly like the stock like the next day like went up because it was like, oh man, Dharmesh, like this insider bought it. He has faith in the company. That was that's a pretty cool move. When you're doing something like that, what is your thinking? Like, are you thinking like, is it part of you like, I just want to prove to the world that I'm brave? Is it part of you like, oh no, this is just undervalued. Like they're foolish. What's your motivation there?
It's exactly what you said, which is I just thought the company was undervalued given the long-term potential. And I've done this before. I did it a couple of years ago and bought a bunch of shares, I think even more at that time, like at $125 a share, right? I'm like, okay, well, and this is when HubSpot stock had dipped over the ensuing, the prior 2 or 3 months. I'm like, I understand the market's more like but this doesn't make any sense. Like HubSpot stock to me was worth more than at the time $125. Turns out I was right. And so it's a similar thing. It's like, and it does signal belief in the company, right? It's what I believe. And there are regulations around it. And people ask, well, why did you buy at that time? And as it turns out, it was the exact window of time that I had to wait a certain period since my last transaction to when I could buy. And the day that I was eligible to buy, I bought. And it's like, okay, the price is low enough. I still have conviction that over the long term.
Are you also buying with money that, like, where did this $3 million come from? Let's say, isn't that just stock you previously sold that you now are buying, or like, it's not like you have some other huge side income stream? Right,
yeah. Yes.
Or can you take a loan against your HubSpot shares to buy more?
There's like 100 things you cannot do. That's one of them. It's yeah.
Wow.
No, I think I saw that the other day, and you've made a few decisions. Like every once in a while, you do something, and I'm like, oh, this guy is nutty in a cool way, and that's not exactly nutty, but it's like a pretty bold move. I thought it was a pretty cool move, and I saw that, and I was wondering what was going through your head when you did that. Because
what's the psychology like when I don't know, HubSpot stock's like, I'm just rounding, I think it's down like 40, maybe 50%, something like that from the all-time high, like during the last kind of the peak of the peak last year or whatever. And so, we come on here sometimes and I'll be like, all right, guys, Sam will be like, dude, how are you? And you lost a bunch of money today. I'm like, yeah, I lost like $1 million today. And like, ETH is down and I'm down $1 million. And I'll share my psychology of like dealing with this travesty of a loss or whatever. And I'll be like, yeah, here's how I think about it. You play that game at like 1,000x higher stakes where like,
or more, like he lost 500 million.
Yeah, exactly. I'm losing 500,000. You're losing 500 million or whatever. Something crazy like that. What's your psychology like? I don't know. Like, I think what question I'm trying to ask, even though I don't have the word.
How does it feel to lose $500 million is what you're asking me.
And how do you deal with that? And like, yeah, go.
Is that how much you lost, you think?
It's more than that, but yeah. Who's counting?
He's like, this podcast is more fun when we were talking about wordplay.
Actually, fine. Like, I'm not really, and I'm not just saying this, but it's true. It does not faze me like one bit, because the reality is, it does not change my life one iota, right? Other than like, okay, well, it impacts, HubSpot employees and shareholders. I get that, but in terms of me individually, like nothing changes, right? Like I wasn't off planning to buy small islands or take over governments or something like that, or buy Twitter, right? I didn't have any of those kinds of plans, and so absent those kinds of plans, like I feel sorry for the nonprofits that I would have invested in, but my wife continues to invest. There's, we have plans to do the philanthropy we want to do, and so it's like, okay, well, I still wake up every day, then do the same things I did before, and I'll look at the wordplay things and respond to user emails, or what's like, and do my HubSpot stuff. It's like, okay, like what's really
changed? You don't even have the self-talk in your head where you kind of need to like, because for me, when it happens, I'm like, I have a instant reaction as I go look at a chart or a price or whatever, and then I give myself a little self-talk and I'm good. Like it lasts 17 seconds, but I do have those 17 seconds. It sounds like you don't even have those 17 seconds because you're like, well, I've already been over this before in my head at some point in my life, and I just decided it doesn't matter.
Let alone the self-talk. The self-talk is one thing, let alone like that. And then there's also this other thing that you and I have, Sean, which is like if the markets are shit for a year or two, like we will change our day-to-day actions. Like, we may not buy X, Y, and Z, or like we might, we're not to that point where it's like, it doesn't matter.
Major cutbacks at the Puri household right now. Major cutbacks.
Yeah. It's like, we'll maybe change behavior, but you don't even change.
I laid off my son.
Yeah. Well, I change in the other direction, right? So as the market has dipped, my kind of average check size has actually gone up. I've made bigger bets and things because I think valuations are starting to adjust, slowly. So I think there are better deals now. Good entrepreneurs starting companies. But overall, like the psychology of it has just does not like have any impact. And like over the long term, I didn't make this up, but is that the valuation of a company, which is like the market price, will oscillate around the value. Right. And value is like the revenues you have, the products that you build, and what are you actually doing for your customers. And so that, if our revenues had dropped off, before something like that had happened, that'd be a different story. But it's like, okay, well, that hasn't changed. We are the same business today, if not better than we were 3 months ago, 6 months ago. And the valuation over time will kind of self-correct. So one of the things I like about the market is that I think things will kind of wash out, and we'll see. Yeah.
And a lot of HubSpot's customers are kind of like, medium-sized, let's say, businesses. So do you spend much energy being like, okay, where is the economy going? What's going to happen to my customers, which will have some knock-on effect of like what's going to happen to our business? Do you care or spend energy there? Because I find myself, the reason I ask, because I find myself sometimes going down these rabbit holes of like, okay, what do I think's going to happen? Then part of me is like, well, does any of that really matter or affect me? Or, is this energy useful, or is this just sort of nervous energy that I'm wasting thinking about this stuff? Do you? And
is HubSpot's customer base even? How many customers does HubSpot have? Like 130,000. Like
somewhere over that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think when I sold, it was 100,000 or just crossed 100,000. In the grand scheme of things, one of the reasons I sold, I'm like, well, 100,000 customers. That's like kind of a lot, but that's not that much. I was like, the market's way bigger than 100,000 people who would want to buy this. And so is 100,000 or 150,000, whatever it is that number even big enough to have the needle move significantly when the economy is shit?
On a percentage basis, like it's, I'll answer it this way. So I'll answer the first question, then we'll kind of move to the second one, which is, do I spend time thinking about this? Do I do anything about it? And the answer is yes. At HubSpot, we will try to model out, here's the impact we think it could have on our business. But and there's two sides to it. There's the kind of defensive side of it. It's like we want to make sure that we have enough cash in the bank to weather the storm. We don't know how long the storm's going to last, and we have models for how long it's going to last, how deep it's going to be, those kinds of things as far as impact. But then the other part, which is to me much more exciting, which is, okay, given what we know, what can we do to capitalize on this crisis, right? This is what's happening right now. What can we do to make this net positive for HubSpot? And we had something similar happen in 2008 at the last HubSpot was much earlier. So things we did, even when the pandemic started, one of the things we did is like, there's lots of uncertainty. Businesses are struggling. Everyone's kind of battening down the hatches. And so we said, okay, we're going to give even more value. We're going to, for our partners, we're going to front them the cash for the revenue we know is coming over time, because cash is an issue, and we had a bunch of cash in the balance. So we did things that kind of made us stronger and helped our customers. And so we're looking for those same kinds of opportunities. It's like, okay, now that everyone's kind of looking at the P&L and looking at all their line items or whatever, can we benefit from this? Because HubSpot, in some ways, is counter-cyclical. It's like, okay, well, instead of buying the big incumbent and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe now people that might not have considered HubSpot a year ago would now consider it, because they're more value conscious now than they were historically. Yeah.